Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Keith, and welcome to my review of the new movie, Indian Horse. Last September, as I made my trek to the Toronto International Film Festival, I announced to anybody who would listen, my goal was to see 50 movies, a goal which I accomplished. However, a very outgoing lady by the name of Katie that I knew reached out to me and said, "Hey Keith, are you going to be going to see Indian Horse? It's a great movie." It wasn't on my list, and I said to her, "Unfortunately not." Little did I know that Katie was a fortune teller, because Indian Horse was a fantastic film, as I recently had the chance to see it. Now, you could say that Katie's biased because her young son Sladen is in the film, but you could also say that Katie knows what she's talking about when she picks a good movie. Indian Horse tells the story of Saul Indian Horse, an Aboriginal young man who was basically taken and put into the residential school system. Now, for those of you not familiar with this has been on the news quite a bit lately, to the fact where Prime Minister Trudeau went to the Pope and asked that, isn't it time that the church, gives out an apology for what happened? Now, essentially what happened was Indigenous kids were taken, and any sort of identity that they had that linked towards their roots were basically stripped from them. They were forced to change their names. They were forced to speak English only, and heaven forbid if they weren't. And of course, these residential schools were run by the church. It is a very powerful movie. At times, a little difficult to watch, but worth watching nonetheless, because it tells a dark story of Canada's history and the oppression of the Indigenous people. I found this movie extremely well done. Directed by Stephen Campanelli, who knows a little thing or two about movies, as he's been a camera operator for Clint Eastwood for over a dozen films. Took on this role of directing this story, which of course many people know as the famed book by Canadian author Richard Waganese. This is probably one of the most powerful films that I have seen in a long time. The role of Saul, who was the main character, is basically spread over three actors as we see this character develop from a young boy to a young man to a grown man, and we see the effects of everything that has happened to him as it blends through his life. Now, he has an outlet, and that outlet for him is hockey. He's a gifted hockey player as he teaches himself how to play. And then there's the option, perhaps, but maybe this is going to be his escape. But is there an escape? This is such a great film. As I watched some of the different cast interviews, one of the interviews that really struck me was one of the actresses was saying, "I wasn't acting because I lived through this." And that in itself is so powerful. This is a movie that you need to see. The one thing that I'm really impressed with this film that I need to mention is the fact that as a Canadian film, it is getting national distribution, which is interesting because usually Canadian films don't. They might have a screening here or there in this city or that city. They might go on a tour because, of course, Canadian distribution, there's always this huge challenge with it. But Indian Horse somehow, some way is able to get national distribution, and I strongly encourage you to go and see a film which I think is one of the best movies of the year. I congratulate director, cast, and crew alike for making this wonderful film, and it needs to be seen by as many people as possible, and that's why I give Indian Horse an A-. If you have the chance of seeing Indian Horse, let me know what you think. CFL_fan on Twitter, Facebook.com/WittyWhittier, and WittyWhittier.com. Thank you so much for checking this out. My name is Keith, and I'll see you at the movies.